What a fantastic, fantastic show. Well, this is going to be Right On Air. Right On Air is made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by Grub CSA Farm, offering organic, local produce grown at their farm in Chico. Grub CSA also sells to local restaurants and at all 3 Chico farmers markets on Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and through their weekly CSA vegetable boxes. More info at 680-4543 and on Facebook and at grubcsafarm.com. All right. Well, I have a new co-host tonight. How are you doing, Shannon? Let me put on your mic first. Maybe that'll help. Say hello again.
Hello.
How you doing?
Good.
Having a good night?
A wonderful night.
Has your day been good?
It's been wonderful.
Fantastic. Well, it's going to get even better in a second. You like how I set that up? Took like a whole 10 minutes to set that little So today's going to get even better because this is Writing on Air, and this is a show that celebrates writers in any form of writing. So if you want to submit and be part of the show, you can do so at write.onair@gmail.com. Or on my Facebook, Writing on Air, you can contact me there. I try to get the shows up every other week or so, although I'm behind by one show. I'm still working on it. I'm sorry, guys. There's one show that's coming, but it will be there soon, as Shannon rolls her eyes at me in the studio. But this show is a special show. It is my mother's birthday coming up, and I wanted to just air some of her writing because she's a fantastic writer. My girlfriend Shannon can attest.
Yes. Actually, her name is Wendy Walker, and she sounds like a superhero. Wendy Walker.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think so.
And then she gave birth to a Kevin Cook. You guys
She did.
sound like Marvel superheroes.
She's fantastic. She actually has been doing writing for a local newspaper, making some appearances there down in, I'll say, Southern California area. And it's awesome. I read all of her stuff. She sent me all of her Mountaineer papers, I should say. Not to disclose too much information for just, safety reasons, I suppose. But, yeah, my mother has written a lot of stuff, and it's actually, she is pretty much the reason I would say why I kind of started writing. I enjoyed it. She gave me a lot of books when I was younger, and that was probably where it stemmed, the main fuel part. But when I found out my mom wrote, I wanted to be a writer too. It was pretty cool. And she's a fantastic writer, like phenomenal writer. Phenomenal many other things too, but I'm going to say her writing has inspired a lot of people, especially on this show, because throughout the years, I've been doing this for about 2.5 years now. She has made little guest appearances here and there on it, because many times, being the poor college student I am, I need help and need people to submit to my show, because I never had people to submit. And so she would, take one for the team and submit a few, and they were fantastic.
They were beautiful.
For a while in the early parts of the show, I wanted to do reading and music at the same time and kind of pair moods and stuff. And one of my favorite shows that I have on here, which maybe I'll air in another date, is a collaboration with me, my mother, and my uncle. My uncle played music, my mom wrote the piece, and then I aired it. And I thought that was one of the coolest things I've ever done on this show. We've had kids on here from Butte County Homeschool, and it was fantastic. But this one show sticks out to me more than a lot of those. It's one of my favorites. Yeah. But I want to start with one that I think is... I like this one. Let's put it that way. This one is Field Notes by Wendy Walker, Rattlesnake Roommate. Walker. We'll dive into this one real quick. For most of my childhood, we lived next to the chaparral-covered hills in Poway, about 11 miles south of Escondido. My friends and I ran all over the hillsides, scrambling over the boulders. We made little campsites and forts, taking advantage of the odd-shaped rocks. One day, a young family moved in across the street from us. The father was appalled to hear that we played in the mountains. He informed us that there was something called a tick that would suck our blood, and there were rattlesnakes hiding under bushes that could kill us with one bite. He put the fear into us. That next summer, I saw my first rattlesnake. It was like they had never existed until that neighbor conjured them up. Not long after, I began to have nightmares about rattlesnakes. I dreamed they were in our hallways, blocking me from reaching my family in the other room. I'd wake up terrified and afraid to get out of bed. Fast forward to a few years ago. I eventually made my peace with the rattlesnakes and helped relocate them from people's yards. I'd borrow a snake catching tool and bucket from Transition Habitat Conservancy's president, Jill Bays, when she was unavailable to help. One day, I was lying in my bed and I heard a snake rattle outside of my bedroom window. Since I am never without my camera, I ran outside to take a photo. It was nowhere to be found. Very strange, I thought. For 2 weeks after that, my cats sulked around the house, jumping at the slightest sound and staring nervously into dark corners. I figured a mouse had come into the house. One afternoon, I was talking to my mom on the phone and walked over to the stove to heat up some spaghetti. As I was banging the container of leftovers into the pot, I saw something stick its head out from under the stove next to my sandaled and very bare foot. Long story short, it turned out to be a rattlesnake. And Jill came to my rescue. We took it far away from the house and set it free. Now I knew why I didn't see a snake outside my window that day. I was under the bed, and the cats, that explained why they have been so jumpy. After that, I promptly invested in my own snake gear. Last year, I removed 3 from my property, and Jill removed 1. Last week, I walked right past one in my front yard and didn't even see it until Poppy, my dog, barked and growled at it. Her rattlesnake avoidance training was worth every penny. Suffice to say, both snake and dog live to see another day, and my rattlesnake gear is ready for action.
Oh my goodness. Every time your mother writes something, I feel like she's like right there saying it. She has a good, very, very good like way of just bringing in imagery, but also sounding very like sweet, conversational, like, oh, by the way, like, love it.
I've never been able to quite capture my mother's ability to make a conversational piece that is casual.
No, not even casual. She has like timing. She's
yeah.
Really good timing. And so, as far as stories go,
yeah,
she's like, and it was a snake.
My mother does a great job at building it up perfectly.
Yeah, and
then giving you exactly like, oh, this is what it is. Oh, how cool! And she sees things in such unique ways that I feel like even sometimes I miss, and I'll be like, oh, I haven't thought of it that way. Yeah. And my mom, this is one of those stories of just a young child who, was okay with animals, and someone came and struck some fear into her, and then. As an adult.
A woman looking in the eyes of a snake.
Yeah, a woman looking into the eyes of a snake. That should be the title of this.
Yes.
There we go, Mom. A woman looking into the eyes of the snake.
And befriending it.
And befriending it. There we go. I love that piece, Mom. Well, I'm going to have you read the next one because I think this one's pretty great.
All right.
This one's called Poppy's Pizza.
Oh, let me see. Okay. Poppy's Pizza. My property looks down upon Saddleback Butte State Park, Black Butte, and all the other buttes and hills scattered from El Mirage to Lake Los Angeles. Sometimes I stand outside and envision myself driving down one of them, and then I just do it. When I get there, I look back towards my house, but it's usually hazy and I can't always make out the exact location. On Monday, the wind finally got to me and I felt a drive would be better than a walk. With Poppy loaded up, we drove down straight down Oasis, past the taco cart at Palmdale Road, and continued towards El Mirage. Once on the dirt, we began to pass discarded televisions, scattered bags of clothes, tired couches, and a few refrigerators past their prime. It's such a shame to see the desert used as a dump. We also passed creosote bushes. Creosote bushes?
Creosote.
Thank you. Beautiful. Covered in downy fruits and yellow flowers, dark pink sand vimbenas, and desert calico along the roadside. Every so often, we'd glide over a soft, silty spot in the road, and a gray cloud of fine dust would plume out behind us and fill the rearview mirror. At one spot, the car slowed down, and the wind blew the dust back onto us. I hastened to close the windows, but the dust swirled in and momentarily choked us before the last window sealed shut. Poppy looked scared. Her lips were pursed as she looked out the windows. The whole car was floating softly in a gray cloud, and she must have thought this was the end of it for us. When I hit the hard pack, I sped up and left the cloud behind us. There's one spot I like to go to that is owned by the Bureau of Land Management. It's a small sand dune at the base of a hill, and Poppy loves running around on it. I only take her there on cool days, as 1, she overheats easily, and 2, I don't want to risk either of us getting snake bit. This day, Poppy wore herself out quickly, and we eventually just sat in the soft sand enjoying the afternoon. We drove home on Sheep Creek Road, and I stopped to fill up my water jugs at the water store by Pizza Factory. The whole time I stood there, I was overcome with that tantalizing aroma of pizza, and I just had to get one. Poppy whines all the way home, and she really wanted to sit next to the pizza, but I scolded her. She got her crusts, and I got a good dinner once we got back. After eating, I finally sat down on the couch to relax. I glanced over to see Poppy standing on her hind legs with her nose buried in leftover pizza. Oh, well, I guess it's Poppy's Pizza for now.
I intentionally didn't read the end of that because I wanted to be surprised on this.
Oh, goodness.
I love that one. So my mother has, I would say, a medium-sized dog. Medium to large.
Cute, muscular,
yeah,
pretty buff.
Quite the robust monster.
Yeah.
Little
princess.
Wonderful little one down there. And she's tall enough that she can just barely reach her head up to the table. And if she stands on her hind legs, she can definitely do exactly what was portrayed in the story, which is get into things that she should not be into.
Yeah.
Mom, I love this piece. This has...
Just feel the love inside where she lives. Poppy, pizza.
Yeah.
I love it.
This piece is, I would say, like one of the most relaxing ones I've read.
Yeah, it's like a day off. Taking your pupper on vacation, little ride. It's wonderful.
Which I'll say from a writing perspective, Mom, that takes some work to catch this. Like this is something that is, I've had a lot of people on this show, and all of them at different skill levels, I'll say, which is what I encourage. I want everyone to be, from first-time writers to people who've done it for years. And while my mother does qualify as someone who's done it for years, I don't give her enough credit.
Yeah,
she's amazing.
She makes a casual day seem like the most fun thing to listen to. It's just like, oh, you did what? You did this?
There's a piece that she shared a long time ago on one of these, on one of the shows that I had, that was about taking me as a toddler out to a car maintenance thing. Just something, one day you had to go get the tires checked or something. And it was one of my most memorable and beautiful pieces I've ever read, because it's just so perfectly exquisite in simplicity. It's exactly what I wanted to read. Everything is perfect about it. There's no parts that I don't like.
It's fluid.
Which is hard to, say that I don't have a bias here, because I definitely do. But well, I want to dive into this next one too, because we're already halfway through the show. Oh my gosh, it's going so fast. So that we've read Rattlesnake 1, and Poppy's Pizza. And I'm going to read, let's see, Mommy, give me 3 more. Which one did I want to read next? Let's dive into Long Forgotten Giants.
Wow.
Long Forgotten Giants by Wendy Walker. I took a little drive the other day to try and find the remains of a single Joshua tree. Not just any old tree, but a 50-foot tall grandfather of all Joshua trees. A newspaper account from 1930 shows a photo of a man standing on top of perhaps a Model A Ford with an arm held up above his head. The distance from the ground to the man's outstretched hand is less than a third of the entire tree's height. The trunk of this magnificent tree was said to be 4 feet in diameter. Although there was little in the way of clues, a drive in blustery weather sounded much better than taking Poppy on a walk, so drive is what we did. The only location descriptions were that it was surrounded by thousands of smaller trees and could be reached, and I quote, via the Adelanto-Lancaster Road, approximately 20 miles west of Adelanto, south of the road in the flats below the foothills. I didn't know if that meant Highway 138 or some other east-west route, closer to El Mirage. I drove all over, trying to stay about 15 to 25 miles from Adelanto. I cruised up and down, back and forth, and even walked short distances from the car, but the piles of trash and sketchy houses made me feel uneasy. I certainly didn't expect to find the complete tree, but hoped that an old stump or some remains spread out on the ground might be proof enough. In the end, my little Subaru was just too low to get a good view of the landscape, so Poppy and I continued on to the Black Butte area southwest of El Mirage and explored over there. It wasn't long before I came up to a very tall tree. While nowhere near 50 feet, it was a fine specimen nonetheless. It gave both of us a chance to walk around while I took some photos. About 3 weeks later, I came across another article from 1930, written a month after the first one. It described a Joshua tree that measured 80 feet tall, and I thought 50 feet was unimaginable. Unfortunately, vandals had set the tree on fire, and a $100 reward was being offered by the International Desert Conservation League for any information about the arsonists. Strangely, this tree was located in a place called the National Roosevelt Monument near Lancaster, a place which I have not yet been able to locate and may require a trip out to Lancaster to investigate. Meanwhile, it looks like more research and desert explorations will continue to be my weekend pleasures while the coronavirus gets sorted out. Be safe and stay tuned for more armchair adventures.
I love it.
I feel like this one was written perfectly for this show, Mom. You've been holding out. There's so many good ones. We're just going to make this a show about my mother, because she's a great writer, for the rest of this, for the next year and a half. Mom, this one is such...
I love it. She took on the role of reporter.
Yeah. An investigative reporter.
Yes.
There's actually a few, some of our old friends in the family, Dan and Sue, my mother will know them, but no one else will know them, so I guess I'm talking directly to you, Mom. They actually took a book once of an ancient. It was a history book of some pictures in Death Valley of where a train used to run, and they took those pictures and lined them up perfectly with the mountain by standing where they thought it was, and ended up finding remnants of an old train, essentially, which was amazing. Things like this are actually in research. I think they're called. Oh boy. There's a term for it, and someone should email me because I don't know what it is. But it's a historical geography or something like that, where people will go to old sites and see what has changed in 50 years, 100 years, 20 years, and then document it. And you can document those changes as part of the culture. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. Maybe this one has is kind of hinting at something like that. Who knows? Because who knows what happened? Maybe there'll be another article that comes out, and there'll be a third piece that my mother will submit to me the second she finds it. Mom, I think this one is probably my favorite out of all these you've submitted so far. Long Forgotten Giants. Shannon, I'm going to give you the one with the interesting words.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm ready.
I'll give you the other one.
Wendy Walker is very good at words, ladies and gentlemen. I am not, so let's do this.
She will beat anyone in Scrabble, and that is a challenge. This one is prefaced with info about grizzly bears in SoCal.
Ooh, okay. When I hike around our local mountains and valleys, I more often than not stare out over the landscape and imagine what it might have looked like 100 and 200 or even 500 years ago. I ponder over the fact that grizzly bears once roamed our local forest lands and wonder what it would be like if populations still existed locally. Ursurus arctos californicus? Yes, a breed no longer in existence, is estimated to have numbered around 10,000 individuals. Vaqueros and ranchers used to enjoy lassoing them and later killing them or pitting them against bulls in a fight to the death. William F. Grizzly Bear Holcomb was largely responsible for the complete termination of the grizzly bear population in Big Bear and Holcomb Valley areas, and was famous for his bear exploits, even though he tried to downplay his actions. In 1916, farmer Cornelius B. Johnson killed a young grizzly that was making a mess of his orchid for 3 nights in a row. Johnson's ranch was located in Big Tujunga Canyon, and while some think that this was the last grizzly killed in the state of California, others think it was more likely an escapee from the Griffith Park Zoo, and not a California native bear at all. While the last known grizzly sighting was in Sequoia National Park in 1924, I did find references to grizzly bears in our own Sheep Creek Wash area prior to that date. In a 1934 edition of the San Bernardino Daily Sun newspaper, there is an account of a hunter that was killed by a grizzly in the Sheep Creek area in 1884. There was also a brown bear sighted in 1889 by the late Edward Dolch in Sheep Creek, but I have not been able to find any other information on these accounts. Living not far from Sheep Creek Wash myself, I am somehow thrilled knowing that grizzlies once set foot in my backyard, and it is my hope that we never again vilify such a living creature as we did our state bear, Ursus arctos californicus. Your mother's a saint.
I think, and this is, again, my opinion piece, but, I mean, if you're listening, I guess you're here for my opinion on some things, I suppose. Well, as I say that, I get a phone call right now, so give me 1 second. Stay tuned. Sorry, guys, just letting in the next programmer coming up, which is going to be Brenton with Radio Radix. I think a lot of people in this world don't understand their place in it, which is not to say that people have places anywhere, but just the fact that we're a human being alive on a rock that's floating through space is something that is seemingly unique so far from what we can tell. And I don't think we understand that where we live as a species is a rock flying through space.
Yes.
And that we should all be working together and figuring things out at the same time. And pieces like my mother's that talk about historical descriptions of where you are living make me feel happy to be alive right now, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the world that's not great, but pieces like this where people are going out and figuring out what their history looks like, what's around them, what this was just recently. Just recently. Only we're talking less than 100 years ago. Just about. These pieces are meaningful and fantastic, Mom. I don't know how else to say this. I've enjoyed all of these so far. So happy birthday so far. I'm going to read the last one. And this one will probably take us out to the end of the show. So this should be good. And no, I've not read it a couple times. So this will be fun. This one is called This One Kind of Iron. My mother was very industrious. The house was always clean, the laundry always done, and a nice meal on the table every night. A walk up to our front door was often accompanied by the gently ka-thumping of clothes in the dryer, along with the faint smell of laundry soap or fabric softener coming out of the dryer vent. Tables and counters were kept dusted, windows were clean, pillows fluffed, and pictures straightened. When the roar of the vacuum started its voracious journey around the house, I'd run into my room and hide. Eventually there'd be a knock on the door. "Wendy, I need you to come in and do your room." I'd open the door with a growl and run into the yard. It was too much chaos for me to handle. I preferred to have things untidy. I could not understand the need for making a bed and keeping things in order. Everything just settled in my closet, on my floor, or on the dresser, which drove my mom crazy. In 6th grade, I learned about life inside of a pond. I was fascinated watching amoebas, paramecium, and copepods gyrate around each other in a drop of water. There was a whole world in there. How could that be possible? Someone mentioned in a class called Environmental Ecology, where you got to study things. Oh, someone mentioned a class called Environmental Ecology, where you got to study things about ponds and the environment. I asked about it, and it sounded quite intriguing but sophisticated. It piqued my curiosity, but I did not think I was qualified enough to take it. It sounded like a class for my brother, for smart people. I was not a smart people. It sounded like too much work, so I continued on with my copepod learning at home. I collected jars of water from little muddy ponds at nearby construction sites. I made sure the water had been there a long time and collected from spots that had good growth of algae. Then I carefully carried the samples home, and soon I had a complete universe on my dresser top. Oh, the joy. I opened my biology book to the page of pond life, got a little notebook to draw in, and proceeded to set up my scientific tools. I used a toy microscope, the kind with a little mirror on the bottom so that you use to point a light source, which then reflects back the light up through the slide tray. It was a nuisance to get the right adjustment, but it yielded fantastic results. There were all kinds of life in my jar of murky water. I could not stop looking at everything. I called to all who would listen to come see my creatures. I practically jumped up and down with joy as each person viewed the results. No one seemed as excited as I, but I had come to accept that I was easily overcome by emotion and that my enthusiasm about anything was largely ignored. So it was that I began amassing other scientific relics. Rocks began to find homes on my dresser, windowsill, and desk, chunks of obsidian from camping trips to Mammoth, California, clear pieces of quartz, fiery red local rocks, and polished stones brought from roadside curio shops. Interspersed were pottery shards found in the hills beyond our Poway, California home, and a little half-formed arrowhead, my crowning glory. This created much concern for my parents, who had spent a lot of money on a prince's bedroom set for me. My sister thought it especially unfair that Wendy got the good furniture and didn't even appreciate it. I was just so glad to have lots of room to put out my collections. One holiday, I was asked to clean my room as Grandma Jackie was coming. She was my dad's mom and was a stickler for organization and cleanliness. I can attest to that, she was. Inside the house, we broke out into a flurry of activity. Furniture was pulled out and the carpet behind vacuumed, pictures were rearranged, bathrooms tidied, kitchen shelves restocked, and last-minute household repairs echoed throughout the house. Dad mowed and edged the lawn, finished up a brick job, rearranged the patio furniture, hung plants from hooks on patio covers, hosed down all the walkways and patios, and put in new bedding plants. Inside the house, I proudly set out my pond universe in the middle of my dresser and illuminated it with a lamp. I cleaned off my rocks and carefully displayed them prominently on my desk. The pottery shards sat in a little box to keep them protected. I made my bed, cleaned the floor, and shoved things in my closet to rid my room of clutter. It was always hectic before Grandma Jackie visited. No matter how much we prepped, something would always be askew. Usually it was me. No sooner had she set foot in the house and began her tour when she turned into my room, which, by the way, was the first room to go into after the guest room. I was waiting there with a proud smile on my face. Just wait until she saw my artifacts. Wouldn't she be impressed by the world contained in a jar on my dresser? My joy was dashed when she walked into the room and let out a gasp. Oh my God. She never said the Lord's name in vain. It was always Ga or Ji-ya. Look at all this pretty furniture with rocks in it. Honey, you're going to scratch it all up. Your mommy and daddy paid a fortune for this. You need to put these rocks outside where they belong. What is this nasty jar of water? My God. she exclaimed as she continued down the hall on her tour, chuckling and out loud in astonishment. I plopped down on the bed near tears. Why was I such a freak? I knew deep down inside that I was tapping into something mysterious, but didn't understand how to harness it and make it work for me. The hills behind our house became a sort of refuge, a place that I could retreat to and get in touch with people who had left pottery shards and arrowheads. Up in the boulders and laurel sumac, I found a part of me that made sense. I could be anything I wanted. Sometimes I was an explorer. Sometimes I rode up on an imaginary horse, or perhaps I was an Indian looking for food. It was a marvelous adventure every time I went out. I thought long and hard about these people that lived a much simpler existence. I thought that I might have enjoyed that kind of life with no school and endless opportunity to roam the countryside. I laughed with imaginary native children and had many conversations with them.
Aww.
This piece is super close to my heart because my mom is one of the most brilliant, intelligent, hardworking, phenomenal people I've ever met. So I don't think any of this, some of it makes me sad, but this piece also is such a beautiful ecological piece.
Yeah.
Looking at a child looking at nature and seeing awe and wonder there and the rest of society not really understanding what that means. So I think, Mom, you've captured so many good things in your writing, I'll say. And this last one, I think, is really at the heart of it. It is a beautiful, beautiful piece, Mom. And it says a lot of things about how we appreciate things in our society that I think are maybe not how we should appreciate them. So happy birthday, Mom. I hope you've had a good day and continue to have a good day. And anything you want to say, Shannon, about any of these pieces?
I thought they were all beautiful. And Wendy Walker, you are a wonderful writer and continue to be.
And submit some more, Mom. I want to get you on a couple more of these things here because I have some things in the works coming up. But if you want to be part of the show, you can do so. Just submit to me via email at write.onair@gmail.com or contact me on my Facebook at Facebook/writingonair, I think is what it is. Or contact me through the station, however you want to get involved. But if you want to, you can submit to me via email, and I'll have you on the show. I've got a couple actually that are waiting for a show, so I get one or two more submissions, and I'll have a show with a bunch of mix-matched ones. So if anyone's out there and interested, please do submit. This has been Writing on Air. Writing on Air is made possible by the generous contributions of KZFR supporters and by Hall Marketing and Design, where you work directly with the owner, Charlotte Hall, not a sales rep. Charlotte and her team can provide a comprehensive marketing plan, including brochures, websites, ads, logos, promotional materials, and more. Whether you're a new business or a business looking for a new look, Hall Marketing and Design can create a plan that's right for you. Consultations at 895-9484 or at hallmarketingdesign.com. Have a good night, everyone.